Hi everyone, it's John. Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to make a video that concerns everyone who loves history, and especially anyone participating in Historathon 2023, and how Princeton University Press has apparently taken an interest in the event and is even supporting it. Back in January, I contacted them interested in a few books that I said I would be interested in if they would maybe send me a copy, and I would gladly send them a review, what I thought about them in return, and also show them on my channel. And not too long after that, someone from their publicity department contacted me and said, would you be interested in some books for Historathon? And I said, of course. How does this work? And she said, basically choose 4 books, one for each quarter, and talk about them on your channel, and hopefully get to review them if you have anything to say about them. And I thought, well, that's a really generous offer and something that I'm definitely going to do going forward in the year. So the first quarter is up. It's a little bit too late for me to start a 500-page book, a scholarly book on the topic that I'll show you it's about in just a second. But for each of the remaining quarters, I want to review the book that they sent me for 2023. So one of the top few books on my priority list will be the book that I requested for quarter 2. I have all of these books here. I want to share them with you. Again, they said I could pick anything from their library that was history related. So I was just pleased that they would be so generous, and I wanted to share them with you. And maybe, like I said, for the remaining quarters, you might find something that you like. One book each from each of the quarters. Let's start off with quarter 1. And this is Radcliffe G. Edmonds's Drawing Down the Moon, Magic in the Ancient Greco-Roman World. What I'm going to do is just read you the ad matter from Princeton University Press's website, so you don't have to rely on me because obviously I have not read the book. I just got them a few days ago, so you can know what it's about. What did magic mean to the people of ancient Greece and Rome? How did Greeks and Romans not only imagine what magic could do, but also use it to try to influence the world around them? In Drawing Down the Moon, Radcliffe Edmonds, one of the foremost experts on magic, religion, and the occult in the ancient world, provides the most comprehensive account of the varieties of phenomena labeled as magic in classical antiquity. Exploring why certain practices, images, and ideas were labeled as magic and set apart from normal kinds of practices, Edmonds gives insight into the shifting ideas of religion and the divine in the ancient past and later Western tradition. Using fresh approaches to the history of religions and social contexts in which magic was exercised, Edmonds delves into the archaeological record and classical literary traditions to examine images of witches, ghosts, and demons, as well as the fantastic powers of metamorphosis, erotic attraction, and reversals of nature, such as the famous trick of drawing down the moon. From prayer and divination to astrology and alchemy, Edmonds journeys through all manner of ancient magical rituals and paraphernalia. Ancient tablets, spell books, bindings and curses, love charms and healing potions, and amulets and talismans. He considers the way in which Greco-Roman discourse of magic was formed amid the centuries of the ancient Mediterranean, including Egypt and the Near East. So fascinating stuff, and stuff I'd like to get to very, very soon. But by the time I finish it, we will be probably well into quarter number 2. So I will save this for another time. But something I will be reading very soon is what they sent me for quarter 2. And for quarter two, I requested this book. The Crisis in the Early Italian Renaissance by Hans Baron. This was originally published in 2 volumes in the 1960s by Princeton University Press, and in the 50s by Princeton University Press, and they published it 10 or so years later as a 1-volume edition. It runs to about 600 or so pages. Hans Baron was one of the many great German immigrant scholars whose work Princeton brought into the Anglo-American world. His Crisis of the Early Italian Renaissance has provoked more discussion and inspired more research than any other 20th century study of the Italian Renaissance. Baron's book was the first historical synthesis of politics and humanism at that momentous critical juncture when Italy passed from medievalism to the thought of the Renaissance. Baron, unlike his peers, married culture and politics, and he contended that to truly understand the Renaissance, one must understand the rise of humanism within the political context of the day. This marked a significant departure for the field and one that changed the direction of Renaissance studies. Baron's book was one of the first major attempts of any sort to ground intellectual history in a fully realized historical context, and thus stands at the very origins of the interdisciplinary approach that is now the core of Renaissance studies. Baron's analysis of the forces that changed life and thought in 15th century Italy was widely reviewed domestically and internationally, and scholars quickly noted that the book, quote, will henceforth be the starting point for any general discussion of the early Renaissance. The TLS, the Times Literary Supplement, called it a model of the kind of intensive study on which all understanding of cultural process must rest. And it is, I know Hans Baron's name, and I've heard of the book, but it was a pleasure to be able to actually read it. Copies of this book don't tend to be cheap, and was just very pleased that I had the opportunity to get my hands on this. For quarter number 3, this is some cultural history / ethnography. And, I'm just sort of pulling up Princeton University Press websites as I show you the books. This is In Humboldt's Shadow, the tragic history of German ethnology by H. Glenn Penny. And I'll read you the material from the website. The Berlin Ethnological Museum is one of the world's largest and most important anthropological museums, housing more than 500,000 objects collected from around the globe. In Humboldt's Shadow, we get the story of the German scientists and adventurers who, inspired by Alexander von Humboldt's inclusive vision of the world, traveled the earth in pursuit of a total history of humanity. It details the fate of their museum, which they hoped would be a scientist's workshop, a place where a unitary history of humanity might emerge. H. Glenn Penny shows how these early German ethnologists assembled vast ethnographic collections to facilitate their study of the multiplicity of humanity, not to confirm emerging racist theories of human difference. He traces how Adolf Bastian filled the Berlin Museum in an effort to preserve the records of human diversity, yet how he and his supporters were swept up by the imperialist currents of the day and struck a series of Faustian bargains to ensure the growth of their collections. Penny describes how influential administrators such as Wilhelm von Bode demanded that the museum be transformed into a hall for public displays, and how Humboldt's inspiring ideals were ultimately betrayed by politics and personal ambition. So a fascinating story of how one of Germany's great ethnologists sort of had his vision sidelined or betrayed uh, by people who were influenced by cultural factors, extra scientific factors, I guess. Fascinating stuff. And the book for quarter four, which looks like it might be the most approachable of all, and for many people watching this video, will be within living history, and maybe in college, high school, whatever, when this happened. So makes it all the more sort of tangible historically. This is The Fire is Upon Us, James Baldwin, William F. Buckley Jr., and the Debate Over Race in America by Nicholas Buccola. On February 18th, 1965, an overflowing crowd packed the Cambridge Union in Cambridge, England, to witness a historic televised debate between James Baldwin, the leading literary voice of the Civil Rights Movement, and William F. Buckley Jr., a fierce critic of the movement and America's most influential conservative intellectual. The topic was, quote, "The American dream is at the expense of the American Negro, and no one who has seen the debate can soon forget it." It's on YouTube, by the way, if you're interested in watching it. Nicholas Buccola's The Fire is Upon Us is the first book to tell the full story of the event, and the radically different paths that led Baldwin and Buckley to it, and how the debate and the decades-long clash between the men illuminates the racial divide that continues to haunt America today. So, not only is it for quarter four, it's also very recent history. So, The Fire is Upon Us, about the debate between James Baldwin and William F. Buckley Jr. So, I thought it was just really wonderful that Princeton is obviously watching over some of our shoulders, seeing what we're doing in BookTube, and choosing to support people who have a passionate interest in serious books, including serious history, serious nonfiction, and it's just really, really lovely to see that they're supporting some content creators that way. I just wanted to show you these books. I will be talking about them as the quarters roll around, issuing full-length reviews, as I always do, eventually. And I will see you very soon. Bye, everyone.